Latest polls, of course, show Clinton faces an uphill struggle to defeat Republican challenger Donald Trump. A CNN survey recently released the day before the convention, in fact, gave Trump a 5-point lead, 44% to Clinton's 39%. Numbers from Reuters released on Tuesday also put Trump ahead. RT's Gayneh Chichikian looks at the scandals that continue to blight Clinton's presidential bid.
Hillary Clinton's sources of income make many Americans worried about whose interests she will protect if she becomes president. After Secretary Clinton left the State Department, corporations and large interest groups paid her over $21 million in speaking fees. In response to why, for just 3 speeches, Wall Street investment giant Goldman Sachs paid her $675,000, Hillary Clinton shrugged.
Did you have to be paid $675,000?
Well, I don't know. That's what they offered. So.
According to the Associated Press, almost all corporations, trade associations, and other groups that paid for or sponsored Secretary Clinton's speeches have actively sought to sway the government, either through lobbying or bidding for contracts. In fact, 1/3 of them were government contractors. But it's not just her profits that have raised concerns. Her husband Bill Clinton's speaking fees skyrocketed when she became Secretary of State.
When it comes to the Clintons, you have to follow the money.
In his documentary, Peter Schweizer has looked at examples of when Secretary Clinton's decisions may have been affected by the money the Clinton family made. A U.S. law prohibits sending aid to corrupt governments where the aid can be stolen, unless there is a special waiver from Secretary of State. Nigeria received such a waiver from Secretary Clinton around the same time as Bill Clinton was paid $1.4 million for 2 speeches in Nigeria, unprecedented for that African nation. In 2010, the U.S. warned Swedish telecommunications company Ericsson that it was violating sanctions against Iran. Ericsson paid Bill Clinton $750,000 for a single speech in 2011, and 1 week later, Hillary Clinton's State Department unveiled its new sanctions list for Iran that did not include telecommunications.
It was a massive win for Ericsson.
In the wake of the devastating earthquake in Haiti, Bill and Hillary Clinton oversaw the distribution of billions of dollars allocated for Haiti's recovery. During that time, Haiti gave a gold mining concession to a company called VCS Mining, whose board of directors was suddenly joined by Hillary Clinton's brother, Tony Rodham.
If you look at the Clintons and the promises that were made and the results that actually followed, it is a tragic story of crony capitalism gone awry.
Hillary Clinton said she received money from all kinds of groups and companies, and it never affected her decision-making. Many find it difficult to believe when they look at her track record, including Clinton's support for trade agreements, which wiped out hundreds of thousands of jobs in the U.S. and greatly benefited wealthy multinational corporations. In Washington, I'm Gayneh Chichikian, RT.
Well, let's now bring in the author and executive producer of the documentary Clinton Cash, Peter Schweizer, who joins us live from Florida. Thanks for joining us on RT International today, Peter. Good to have you with us. The Clinton Foundation denies any wrongdoing in any of these sort of financial machinations, yet you say that in Clinton's case there's only one principle, and that's follow the money. What makes you think that?
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, the money that they have received often comes from people in places like Africa, for example, that have a history of corruption, of being involved in corrupt practices. There's an Indian politician named Amar Singh who's listed as giving between $1 and $5 million, who has been implicated in bribery scandals in India. So the question becomes, do you think that these individuals are throwing large sums of money at the Clintons and not wanting something in return, or is something else going on? I think it's naive to think that they're just doing this out of the kindness of their hearts.
And just in terms of I mean, look, your documentary allegedly exposes the Clintons and how they make their money, how they've amassed this pretty big fortune in their Clinton Foundation. How did she manage, and how did her husband manage to keep that system up and running and get away with it all? Because surely there's oversight control systems here. There should be some accountability and transparency where the money comes from. How have they managed to do this and not face any challenges?
Well, that's a great question. The problem is there were some controls that were set up. President Obama in 2008, as a condition of Hillary Clinton becoming Secretary of State, required the Clintons to disclose all donations to the Clinton Foundation. And there's a memorandum of understanding that was actually signed to that effect. Hillary Clinton also promised complete transparency to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee when she was being confirmed as Secretary of State. But we now know that that's not the case, that there are literally more than 1,000 donations that they did not disclose, that they hid, oftentimes involving, let's say, very questionable transactions. So those controls were set in place, but the Clintons ignored them. And the Clintons are very smart lawyers. They know where the legal lines are. By breaking this agreement, they may not have broken the law per se, but they broke their agreement with the President of the United States, and yet they continue to sort of just move along. So those controls have been set into place. The Clintons have just violated them, and they've essentially said, you know, look, catch us if you can. We're going to keep doing what we're going to do. They've promised to do this if she becomes President of the United States, keep taking the speaking fees and keep taking the donations to the Clinton Foundation.
So from what you're saying, I mean, this reminds me a bit of the UK tax haven scandal. I don't know if you heard about it. It resonated in the Panama Papers. What these people aren't doing isn't illegal per se, but it's a very grey area. They're using legal loopholes here to do this without actually being in breach of any laws. Is that the sort of thing you're alleging happened?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great analogy. Look, I do think that there's the very real potential that there were laws broken as well. In the United States, we have laws relating to public servants that are pretty clear when it comes to accepting donations. If you are taking official government action on behalf of somebody who has given you something of value, that is a violation of federal law. Now, obviously, you have to convince a jury of that. You have to investigate it. And that's really what I've called for. I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to know that a law has been broken. But if you look at recent political corruption trials in the United States involving Senator Menendez from New Jersey, the former governor of Virginia, the former governor of Alabama, I would argue that there's far more compelling evidence that the Clintons have broken those laws than any of those individuals that I've mentioned have. The question is, will a prosecutor take it on, and will a grand jury in the U.S. court system actually have an opportunity to hear the evidence? That's, of course, the question.
Indeed, and a lot of questions remain to be answered, of course. Let's just talk a bit about Hillary Clinton's bid to be the first female president of the U.S. She's could be the potential president for the next 4, even 8 years if she is elected and subsequently re-elected. Why do you believe she wants this position so much? What's driving her, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's hard to look into somebody's head or soul and know what is motivating them. I think, look, she has ideas and beliefs that that are important to her. I think also, look, the Clintons have this sort of vast empire of the Clinton Foundation, and being in public service from the point Bill Clinton left the White House to the present time, they've made more than $200 million. So it's not only a question of going into public service and advancing a political agenda that they believe in. Public service has also been very profitable for the Clintons. So I think that's probably, a motivation as well. I think it's fair to say that when Hillary Clinton leaves the political stage, and of course Bill Clinton has left the political stage, they are going to have increasing difficulty getting people to donate to the Clinton Foundation. They're going to have increasing difficulty getting people to pay large speaking fees because they will not be as relevant anymore, and they won't have the reins of power in a way where they can do things that would be of benefit for potential donors. So for the Clintons, there are a lot of motivations, I think, for seeking this office. Part of it's a political agenda in her views, but I think part of it is perpetuating the Clinton Foundation and this wealth-creating system that they have developed.
As we've seen, former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, obviously, as well, having left Downing Street, has become Middle East peace envoy, made quite a lot of money from other roles there. It could be argued, of course, Clinton's name is becoming quite synonymous with scandal, isn't it? With these the leaks, these payoffs that are alleged in the documentary. But she has a big base of support, doesn't she, among Americans? Quite a substantial base, and hence why she has become the Democratic nominee. Why are Americans still supporting her, then, if there are all these allegations against her?
That's a great question. Look, it's kind of a paradox. She's running neck and neck with Trump in the polls. Both of the candidates have high negatives in different areas. In the case of Hillary Clinton, close to 70%, almost 7 out of 10, don't believe that she's honest. That's a huge problem. Now, is that enough to not get a politician elected? Who knows? Certainly there are people that share her views on political issues, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's domestic policy, whether it's issues related to civil rights. Certainly there are people that embrace her views. But when it comes to sort of personal attachment to her, the numbers are not so great. One of the surveys that came out recently asked, do you think Hillary Clinton is seeking the presidency for personal gain or for the good of the country? Less than half, 42%, said they believed she was doing it for the good of the country. A large percentage, a sizable chunk, believe she is doing it for personal gain. So, she has her supporters, but I think even among people that agree with her on the political issues, there's this sense that she may not be as candid and as honest as they would like her to be.
And we're running out of time, Peter, but if we could just get one question briefly, and touch upon the subject you mentioned there, good of the country versus personal gain. If Clinton was able to seal all these deals while working in the State Department, as you allege, in the event of her being elected as President of the United States, what can we expect from her conduct in that case?
Well, Bill Clinton's already told us he's going to continue to do what he's been doing. He's going to continue to take large inflated speaking fees from overseas. Remember, as an ex-president, he was making $175,000 a speech. She becomes Secretary of State. Literally overnight, that triples. That will increase even more if she becomes president. So we can expect more of the same. Larger flow of money because, of course, when you are paying the spouse of the president, you can expect more in return than when you are paying the spouse of the Secretary of State.